In ancient Egypt, not everyone was a pharaoh. Most people were workers, farmers, artisans, scribes, living along the Nile in mud brick homes. Our day begins at dawn, as the desert night cools, fades into sunlight. The house is 1 or 2 rooms, with flat roofs and few windows to keep out heat. Breakfast is bread and beer. Yes, even for kids, thick, cloudy beer made from fermented grain. The men head to fields by the Nile. Irrigation channels guide water to crops, wheat, flax, barley. Women manage the home, grinding grain, baking, weaving, caring for children. Children didn't go to school unless they were wealthy. Most learned by copying their parents. Lunch is light, more bread, onions, and sometimes dried fish. Dates and figs for a sweet treat. Afternoons are brutal. Workers rest under shade or nap inside. Religion is everywhere. A shrine sits in each home, tiny statues of protective gods. In towns, artisans carve stone, shape pottery, or write for officials. Scribes are respected and rare. After sunset, dinner is similar to lunch. No meat, unless it's a feast or festival. Music and board games like Senate fill the evening. Some sing hymns, some gossip. As night falls, people sleep on reed mats. The roof is the coolest place, unless the sandstorms come. Life was hard, but it had a rhythm, flowing with the Nile, the sun, and the seasons. Ordinary Egyptians built pyramids, but also lived, dreamed, and laughed beneath them. Their names are mostly forgotten, but their world shaped ours. Imagine needing to go, but instead of heading to a private room, you walk into a large stone chamber with benches and strangers. Welcome to the Roman toilet experience, social, public, and surprisingly advanced by ancient standards. In Rome, going to the bathroom wasn't a solo mission. It was part of community life. Toilets were long stone slabs with holes. Underneath, a drainage system that flowed to the sewers. Romans were proud of their sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima, which carried away waste with running water. But toilet paper, not a thing. Instead, they had a sponge on a stick, used communally. After using the sponge, they rinsed it in a water channel that ran in front of the seats. Then, the next person used it. Hygiene by modern standards wasn't stellar, but the Romans did try to keep things flowing and flushed. To keep odors down, they sometimes added vinegar or salt to the rinsing water. It didn't always help. Of course, not everyone used public toilets. Wealthier Romans had private latrines in their homes. But even private toilets dumped into the same city sewers. There wasn't much separation between rich and poor waste. Still, bathrooms weren't entirely safe. There were tales of creatures crawling up the pipes, or worse, methane explosions. To ward off dangers, some Romans prayed to toilet gods. Yes, bathroom deities existed. Public bathhouses also had toilets nearby. After washing, Romans might stop for other kinds of relief. For Romans, cleanliness was linked to civilization. Their toilets were both function and philosophy. Still, despite the systems, Rome wasn't exactly a fresh-smelling city. Waste management had limits. Eventually, as Rome declined, so did its plumbing. Toilets were abandoned, sewers clogged. But for centuries, Romans had figured out something surprisingly modern. Everyone needs to go, might as well build for it. Let's go back a few centuries. There are no toothbrushes, no toothpaste, no running water, no bathtubs either. And yet, medieval people did care about cleanliness. They just had different methods. To clean their teeth, many people chewed on twigs, birch, ash, or hazel. Chew, fray, scrub, done. They also rubbed their teeth with linen cloth, mixed with salt or ashes. Yes, actual ashes. Mouthwash? Try wine, vinegar, or cold mint tea. If it burned, it meant it was working. Now, let's talk bathing. It wasn't daily. It wasn't even weekly for most, but it did happen. Public bathhouses were common in cities, monasteries, even castles. Men and women sometimes bathed together, scandalous, and very clean. Soap was made from animal fat and lye. Effective, but it smelled like boiled goat. Some bathed with herbs. Rosemary, lavender, and thyme made the tub smell less like people. Still, many feared that too much bathing opened the pores and let in evil humors. By the 13th century, some wealthier homes featured wooden tubs and perfumed oils. But for most people, cleanliness was seasonal. Cold winters made baths rare. People believed water could carry disease, so they bundled up and stayed dry. Instead of daily baths, many used linen cloths to rub down the body, followed by a splash of vinegar or rose water. Teeth brushing? Sort of. They used chew sticks, rough cloth, and powders made from charcoal, herbs, or even crushed eggshells. To freshen breath, people chewed on mint, cloves, or parsley, or simply covered their mouths with handkerchiefs. At night, families often slept fully clothed in shared beds for warmth, not comfort. The idea of personal space was modern. Some homes used hay mattresses or straw, stuffed into wooden frames. Over time, these could smell worse than the streets. The wealthy had feather beds, warming pans, and curtains, but most people dreamed in drafts and woke up stiff. Hygiene in the Middle Ages wasn't about being clean. It was about avoiding filth. Different goal, different standards. Yet for all their strange methods, medieval people tried their best to stay tidy, by their definition. And that's what mattered. History is full of peculiar flavors, some sweet, some savory, and some deeply unsettling. Welcome to the dinner tables of the past. Let's start with roast rat. In 17th century France, rat was a delicacy, especially when food was scarce. In fact, rats were sold in Paris markets during sieges. They were cleaner than you'd think, at least the city rats. Next, horse jelly. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Made by boiling horse hooves until they formed a gelatin. Gelatin was prized for its texture, not taste. Medieval cooks added honey, herbs, or even rose water to make it palatable. In ancient Rome, a delicacy called garum was made from fermented fish guts, left to stew in the sun. The smell was unbearable, but the flavor? Addictive. Romans poured it on everything, like ketchup, but way more aggressive. In 18th century England, mock turtle soup was a trend, made not from turtle, but from calf's head. It was considered luxurious, rich in gelatin, marrow, and a strange sense of victory over nature. Let's not forget black pudding, a blood sausage made with oats, fat, and yes, real blood. Breakfast, anyone? In Viking times, fermented shark, known as hocker, was buried underground for months before it was edible. The ammonia smell was brutal, but in Iceland, it was a badge of bravery to take a bite and keep it down. The Mongols drank horse milk, fermented into a sour, fizzy drink called arag. It was refreshing, apparently. And in medieval Europe, swan was reserved for the nobility, roasted whole, feathers and all, as a showpiece. For dessert, how about eel pie? Popular in Old London, it was savory, gelatinous, and best enjoyed without questions. During hard times, people turned to bread made of tree bark or soups with boiled leather. Survival left no room for picky eaters. Even royalty indulged in oddities: peacock, porpoise, beaver tails. If it moved, someone cooked it. Today, we have fast food. Back then, food was slow, strange, and sometimes deeply creative. Whether it was necessity, tradition, or wild imagination, strange foods helped people survive, and occasionally thrive. So next time your dinner feels boring, just be thankful it doesn't smell like fish guts or contain horse hooves. History had flavor, sometimes too much. Imagine waking up at midnight, Not from a nightmare or noise, but because it's simply time to be awake. In pre-industrial Europe, it was normal to sleep in two parts, a first sleep, then a peaceful intermission. People would wake naturally around midnight, spend an hour or two doing quiet things, then return to sleep. This wasn't insomnia, it was considered the healthy way to rest. No stress, no blue light, just rhythm. Some prayed, some journaled, others visited neighbors or snuck off for secret meetings. Doctors even recommended it. Manuals from the 1500s described the watch, the quiet time between sleeps, as sacred. This sleep pattern existed across Europe, from England to Italy. Even monks followed it as part of their routine. So why did we stop? Blame the light bulb. As cities lit up and workdays stretched, our double sleep faded. A single 7-hour block became the new normal. But our bodies? They still remember. That strange middle-of-the-night wake-up? It might be ancient rhythm tapping on your shoulder. So next time you wake at 3 a.m., maybe don't panic. Read a book, light a candle, embrace your second sleep. In the quiet, between dreams, lies an old rhythm, forgotten by most, but still alive in the stillness. In ancient Athens, love wasn't just a feeling. It was strategy, social dance, and sometimes a philosophical argument. Dating, or what passed for it, followed strict rules. Class, gender, and purpose all shaped how people courted. Most respectable women didn't date at all. They were married off young, often by age 14, to older men their fathers approved of. Romance, that lived outside of marriage. Flirting happened at symposiums, all-male drinking parties. At these parties, flirtation was often between men and boys, part of a tradition called pederasty. This wasn't just romantic, it was also educational. The older man was expected to mentor the younger in arts, ethics, and politics. For heterosexual flirtation, things were trickier. Respectable women were mostly hidden from view, kept indoors. So how did men and women even meet? Temples, festivals, sometimes funerals. Poetry was a classic move. Love poems, often dramatic, filled with longing, were shared aloud or sent via friends. But the smoothest of all, Sappho. Sappho's poetry was sensual, emotional, and deeply human, addressed to women about desire. Flirting wasn't always subtle. In some city-states, men left gifts outside women's doors, figs, ribbons, or a poem tucked in an amphora. In Sparta, it was more direct. Girls wrestled boys, literally. Flirting through physical strength? Very Spartan. In most cities, though, love remained cautious. Society watched closely. Even passion had to wear a proper mask. Still, people found ways. A glance at a festival, a poem under the door, a stolen moment beneath the moan. Because even in ancient times, flirting was timeless, awkward, beautiful, and somehow, even with togas, temples, and strict rules, the ancient Greeks still fell in love. Thanks for watching, and if history taught us anything, it's that daily life was never boring.